What's up? We'll give everyone a few minutes to jump on and then we'll get started. That'll give me a chance to actually pull the schedule back up too. I agree. Hola. Make sure you smash the like button. Apparently that helps my algorithm. All right, we'll go ahead and get started here because what turns out happening a lot of times is people jump on and watch the replay of this. So we'll get started and people can kind of pick up where we go. I guess I'll start with we'll go week to week through the schedule. I'll give you my quick thoughts. Just looking at it. So the season opens with Louisville on a Friday night in Mercedes-Benz. Obviously not optimal. In some ways, probably better than playing on Monday. You don't get the recruits you would get on a Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, but you get not the short rest before you play an FCS game the following day. So it's a trade-off. I'm not a big fan of these games at Mercedes-Benz. And, it is what it is, right? Like, cool, they're going to play Louisville. Hopefully it'll be a decent turnout. It'll be the first official game of the Brett Key era. And they're going to play a Louisville team that has a new head coach, new offense, new everything, new quarterback. And then Georgia Tech's going to come with a lot of big questions. So it's going to be a really interesting game. I think that it's going to be a different type of game for Georgia Tech. To open with, I think it's going to be really fascinating to have two head coaches going against each other in their first official game as full-time head coaches at those places. And obviously a cool story with Jeff Brom at Louisville. So I don't know what to make of it. I think we're all so far away from that. I think Louisville's still a team that's in flux with their roster a little bit too. And obviously Georgia Tech, you have a lot of questions about just, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, what it's going to look like. So I think it'll be a really interesting game to come out of the gate with. Then they have South Carolina State week 2. That should be what we would. Now that Jeff Collins is gone, I would say these are probably back to being slam dunk games. I'm not going to be as concerned about how Georgia Tech plays as I was when they went out against Western Carolina last year or every other FCS game with Jeff, like the Citadel, where you're holding your breath, wondering if they're going to screw it up again because that was inconceivable up to that point. So, chance to be 1-1 or 2-1 there. The trip to Ole Miss will be really interesting. Ole Miss is a team that's like Louisville in a lot of roster flux. Talking to people in Oxford and Russell and I both have a lot of connections there. It's been kind of interesting to see, that roster has not evolved the way people thought it would with their NIL and stuff. And they're having to come and take, the Zamari Waltons of the world. I like Zamari Walton, but I don't know that he's an SEC cornerback and a guy you go into the portal to get. So they've had some issues building organically, really, other than 2 kids on their team this past year. It's been a lot of transfers and guys that they kind of used NIL to get. And, they have 3 quarterbacks right now, no skill guys other than Judkins. So, I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see what that Ole Miss team looks like. And obviously new defensive coordinator. How much are they going to change up schematically with Pete Golding and whatever their situation is with their defense? And you're playing at Ole Miss. It's going to be a tough game. Anyway you slice that, that's a tough game. So I'm really curious to see what that looks like. I have no way to really gauge that. The trip to Wake Forest to me is really interesting in week 4 because that's pretty early. You're going to be in the Mitch Griffiths era or whoever's their quarterback. Sam Hartman's gone. Kevin Higgins, their receivers coach, who's been a stalwart of Dave Clawson's team, announced today that he's taken an off the field position involving NIL for Wake Forest, which is sort of fascinating. They punch above their weight. What are they going to look like that early in the season? Will they have hit their strides? I don't know. That's a winnable game to me on paper. That's like the Louisville game. I think those two are toss-ups. Out of the gate, you can, if you're at 2-2 through the first 4 games, I think you're feeling pretty good. Bowling Green comes to town. Bowling Green sucks. You should beat Bowling Green. Bowling Green is not a good MAC team, despite whatever. Even I haven't even looked to see what their numbers are. I've watched them play, and it's not anything that Georgia Tech should be having an issue with. Scott Loeffler is like one of the worst coaches to ever become a head coach, in my opinion. One of the worst offensive coordinators in ACC history in recent years, and somehow that guy keeps moving up into jobs. They won 6 games this past year. They beat, let's see, what did they beat? They beat Marshall in overtime, beat a terrible Akron team, beat Miami of Ohio is okay, at Central Michigan's okay, Western Michigan, meh, and beat at Toledo, which was a decent win. I don't know. They got lost to New Mexico State in the Quick Lane Bowl. I think that it's Scott with 1 T, by the way, Russell. It's SCOT, Scott Loeffler. I've been banging on Scott Loeffler for like a decade, so that's not a new observation. It's one that's shared with a lot of other people I know in the college football business. So that's what game 5. Hopefully at that point you're 3-2 or 4-1. I think less than that. If you're 2-3, you're probably a little disappointed with the season start. Go down to Miami. Miami. It's going to be a total crapshoot of a game. That one seems to have little bearing on how either of these teams have played for whatever reason the last few years. Georgia Tech's got them down there before and got them here, and struggled to put them away last time down there. So, my feelings on the U are quite well known. They're in my bottom 5 football fan bases in college football and all athletics. So I think that it'll be interesting to see what's going on. BC is a team that's in tremendous flux. There's really a lot of pressure on Jeff Hafley already. They have a new AD who's ironically Miami's former AD, the guy that hired Manny Diaz there. And there were rumblings that they might make a change past off season already. And Hafley, I think, is a pretty good coach. So I'm not, I just think they're not very talented overall, and they haven't been. They've kind of coached above it. That's a winnable game. So let's see. Go 2, 1, 2. So 5-2, 4-3, something like that in the turn. Then you get so before that you have the bye week before BC. Then you get North Carolina here in Atlanta. They've had North Carolina's number. That's the one team that there's like a winning streak against for Georgia Tech. And when they play defense for the first time, I'll believe it. They haven't played defense since Butch Davis was fired. As ironic, Roddy Jones was talking about this on the TV broadcast on the ACC network today, and it was like, Roddy's a firm believer they're going to eventually get that defense. And I kept telling him I didn't think so. And last year was another example of them not really getting it done. But they always have players. They just don't. I don't know. They're sort of turned into Miami in some ways there with a team that's loaded that can't win. That's a toss-up game to me. It's probably North Carolina should be favored in that game. Um, the trip to Charlottesville worries me because Georgia Tech just historically has never played well there, regardless of how good or bad Georgia Tech and Virginia have been. That's been a weird place. That was the weirdest place that I think Paul Johnson said he ever coached. Just the way that was the only game I think he ever won as a coach, where he had two special teams blunders and like a block kick in a game in his entire career. Uh, just a weird place. Tony Elliott's seemingly in over his head a little bit there. Their recruiting's not gone very well. I don't know what they have like left. They've lost so much on their offensive side. Brennan Armstrong was really sort of the crux of why they've been successful. So I'm really curious to see what Virginia looks like. I would pick them probably if we were still in the coastal thing. They'd probably be picked last this year out of all the teams. They may be picked. I'll be curious to see what I guess we're going to do 1 through 14 when we do at the ACC kickoff in July, since there's not a coastal Atlantic thing anymore. So that's a very winnable game. Clemson's going to be hard. Clemson's good. They have an offensive coordinator who I think is actually good at his job for the first time in a while. That I think is a really high level guy. I wasn't a huge Tony Elliott guy. I just was never super impressed with what he did. I like Tony Elliott. I think he's a decent coach. I didn't see anything innovative in his offense at Clemson. And if you give, whoever, Dave Padno, Trevor Lawrence, or Chip Long, or who pick a OC, Scott Loeffler, who I was just bagging on, that guy's going to win games with Trevor Lawrence, right? Or Deshaun Watson. I don't know how much of that was Tony Elliott and Jeff Scott versus how much having generational talent at quarterback is. So I'll be really curious to see what they do now with Garrett Riley. That's a really interesting hire to me. It shows that Dabo's in it to win it again. He was pissed with what happened this past year. So I think that's going to be a really tough game. I think Syracuse is really on the backswing right now. I think they're backsliding, and I think this is probably going to be it for Dino Babers this year. And a loss in Atlanta might be what does him in. And then you get Georgia at the end of the year, and I think I tweeted that they haven't won. I think it was in high school the last time, or a freshman in college the last time Georgia Tech won in Atlanta over Georgia. Don't know what Georgia is right now either, right? They have tons of talent, have a lot of really talented players. Who's their offensive coordinator? Is it Todd Monken? Is it someone else? Who's their quarterback? What does their team look like? How's their defense? Those are all things that will get sorted out. Georgia plays a really soft schedule next year. I was looking, I think Georgia Tech might be their third hardest game on their schedule next year. So to put it in perspective, it should be interesting. So that's sort of my take on it. I see 6 to 8 wins. That's what this looks like to me. I think there's, the toss-up games to me that will determine whether you go bowling or not are going to be Louisville, probably the Ole Miss game, Wake Forest, Miami, and maybe North Carolina. And then, the definite wins to me right now are South Carolina State, Bowling Green, Boston College, Virginia, and Syracuse. So if they can take care of business, they got a good chance to get back to a good season. I think you got to set expectations with where they are still. This is not a finished roster. So we'll see. Luckily, Duke's not on the schedule. Someone's asking about Duke. They're off the schedule. Mike Elko is a really good coach. Will be interesting to see if he can keep getting those guys to play hard. It was a little bit like Brent Key, where guys just played really hard for him. And they were very mistake-free defensively for the most part. The Carolina game was the one game where it sort of got away from them, and they lost because of some bad officiating / some mistakes defensively. So let's get into the questions a little bit more. Yeah, this year Georgia Tech is not playing 5 of the top 25 teams this year. That's a bonus. You're not playing Florida State. You're not playing NC State. You're not playing Duke, who's going to be pretty decent. Pitt. So you're avoiding some of the tougher games. You're swapping in some games like Syracuse and Boston College instead that are going to be interesting. Louisville's obviously a huge wild card. Cuse is a perfect warm-up game to beat Georgia. Yeah, it'll be interesting. The Syracuse, like I said, they could be on their last legs by that. I need to pull their schedule up real quick. I haven't looked at a lot of the other ACC schedules. Let's see. Let me pull up the team by team ACC schedule here. Let's see. Come on. So there's a stupid pop-up. So Syracuse has Colgate, Western Michigan, at Purdue, which is not an easy game for them. Army, Clemson. Ooh, this is a rough road for them. They play Clemson at home, and then at North Carolina, at Florida State, and then a bye. Then at Virginia Tech on a Thursday night. Oof. BC and Friday night at home. Pitt in Yankee Stadium. Georgia Tech, Wake Forest. Yeah, I think old Dino might not be escaping that one. That might be it. Curtains for him. Miami is off before Georgia Tech. Let me pull up the list of someone was kind enough on the chat and the board to do the list of who plays who before Georgia Tech. Always one of Paul Johnson's favorite pastimes was complaining about this. Louisville and Georgia Tech obviously are neither have played anybody. South Carolina State plays at Charlotte the week before Georgia Tech. Ole Miss plays at Tulane, which could be an interesting game. I'll be very interested to see what Willie Fritz's team looks like coming off a good year for them. Can they maintain their momentum? Wake is at Old Dominion, which is a little bit of a trap game for them. The MAC hasn't announced their schedule. Miami's on a bye. BC's on a bye before Georgia Tech. Carolina plays Virginia. Virginia plays at Miami, which is interesting. Clemson, Notre Dame, which is actually good for Georgia Tech. Syracuse versus Pitt. And then Georgia versus Tennessee, which is really fascinating at Tennessee the week before Georgia Tech. So, Georgia's schedule is weird. They seem like they're ending on a kind of high note. So it's going to be interesting. Will they close off the upper decks for the Louisville game? It depends on what the ticket sales are. I have no idea. I think that the reason why they were closed off this past time had more to do with the situation with the program at the time with Jeff Collins than anything else. I never asked Todd Stansberry why they chose to do that. It was his decision, apparently, according to the Mercedes-Benz people. Who do I think will start at quarterback? Today I would say Zach Byron. Zach's the guy till someone beats him out to me. I've watched Haynes King play. I've watched Zach Gibson play, obviously, in person now. And I would say Zach Byron's the guy that I would expect to win the job as of today. Now, he has to win the job, right? So that's a whole other can of worms. And it's different to be the guy who's being chased versus the one being the hunted versus the hunter, right? Yeah, I see someone saying King will start. I don't know. That's an opinion. I don't think neither one of them played well enough for you to be like, hey, this is the guy. That's not like you're getting Michael Penix from Indiana or Sam Hartman or something. I think it's ridiculous for anyone to expect anyone in particular to jump out that's out of that group right now. I think it's just not based in reality. What are my four other most hated fan bases? Miami's in my top 5. LSU's in my top 5. UCF's in my top 5. UCF and Miami have these weird Twitter army things that are kind of gross to me. I'm trying to think of who else is in there. The most obnoxious fan bases. Tennessee's pretty bad. Tennessee's kind of a weird one. LSU's really bad as well. So I wouldn't say Georgia. I know too many Georgia fans. I have them in my family. That's not been my thing. Uh-oh. Hey, you want to come say hi to everybody?
Huh?
You're not supposed to be in here.
Oh,
Say hi to everybody. I'm talking to people on the internet.
where?
Say hi.
Where?
We're talking to them. See, we're on video. Say hi. This is Bo. This is my youngest. He's having trouble adjusting to not being in a crib anymore. So he came by to say hello. Yeah, he might be a future Jack. He's pretty into engineering stuff and trucks and stuff. All right, buddy. Say goodnight. You need to go back upstairs, okay?
No, I want you to see. I want you to sit with me.
Okay, I'll come up and sit with you in a few minutes when I'm done, okay?
Oh.
No. That's not toys. Go upstairs. Go upstairs. Go find your mommy. Go find mommy.
Why are you on
Bo, go find your mommy. Go take that to mommy. Welcome to my night. That's what's been going on lately. Yeah, Russell knows this too. Russell's in toddler world too. We have his middle and my youngest are like only a few weeks apart. All right, we'll go into other questions here. Sorry about that, folks. Let's see. The Friday night game at Louisville. It's it's suboptimal from a recruiting perspective. From a football perspective, it's fine. I'm excited about it because I get to watch other games on Saturday. I probably actually am going to go. So one thing you guys don't know about me, every year I try to go. Some of you know I run multiple rival sites, so I have a couple of different ones. That Alabama is obviously the one that everyone kind of knows about, but USF and some other ones. And I'm probably going to go up to Western Kentucky actually that Saturday and watch the Hilltoppers play USF and Alex Golish's first game. My goal is to go to every college football stadium before I retire from this and cover a game, every possible one that I can go to. So a little trip up to Western Kentucky could be a definite kind of only plus side of that Friday night game right now. Georgia Tech, by the way, the GTAA probably had nothing to do with the Friday night thing. That's definitely a TV ACC thing. Who gets more ACC wins, a football team or basketball team? I'm going to put my money on Brent Key right now. I think Josh will win 3 or 4 more games, probably. If he doesn't, it's going to be a really long next month for me. But I would say Brent Key will probably win more games. Other questions, folks? Mm-hmm. By the way, I saw this on Twitter. Coaches do not, and men's basketball coaches have control over the non-conference schedule. In football, they do not. That's all set. Usually by an associate AD. It was Mark Roundtree, I think, for Todd that did that. There's always like some different guy that did it. Ryan Bamford did it for Babinski. So, will Mac Brown's final season or one more? I think it depends on how they do. I think every year could be Mac's last. I actually like Mac Brown. I don't know if he's going to stick around. I just think it's going to be it's a year-to-year thing. I think at this point with Mac Brown, how much longer he coaches. Obviously, if they don't have a replacement for Drake May in the pipeline, that might influence him as well. We get to see much of spring practice. Don't know yet. Coach Key is very aware of like what's important for us and media access and the importance of having some of it. I think there's, like most coaches, there's concerns over what you want out there, what you don't want out there, especially when you open the season with a league game in the Benz. So I think it'll be less open than when Jeff did, but I imagine there'll be some opportunities. What's the toughest game on the schedule that might surprise us? I think the game at Wake Forest could be really interesting, to be honest with you. Dave's a really great coach, good guy. I know Dave Clausen, got to know him a little bit over the last few years. His teams always kind of play really hard. They're very gritty. That long mesh is difficult to defend. He always seems to find his quarterback. I think that's going to be a tough game in Winston-Salem. What's the QB situation at USF? Will Archie get a look this year? I don't know. I assume that Gary Bohannon will be the quarterback, the kid they got from Baylor. He got hurt this year and is coming back. He led Baylor 2 years ago were they in the playoffs or an Access Bowl or whatever it was. Was a really talented guy, just didn't have a lot of weapons around him. He'll be QB1. I think Byron Brown will be QB2. And then it'll be Bryce Archie or Gunnar Smith. But again, it's all up in the air because Alex Golish is the new OC. So I think it's going to be pretty open for the time being. What bowl game are Georgia Tech headed to? I hope my hope is a good one. I want to go to the Holiday Bowl. That's the one I'm pulling for out in San Diego. I'm even looking at maybe going to the Diamond Head for basketball. Cashing in my Sky Pesos and all my Hilton points and going out there for Christmas. My wife heard about it. I accidentally said that Georgia Tech was playing in it, and then she was like, "Oh, we got to go. We got to go to Hawaii." So maybe having to go out there. Any new branding stuff from Brent Key? No. Brent is all about football and ball and doing what it takes to win games, and I think that stuff will come. Who retires first, Mac or Saban? I think Mac Brown retires first. I think Saban does. Saban strikes me a little bit as this guy that doesn't know what to do with himself if he's not coaching football. He doesn't seem to have as many outside interests. Like Paul Johnson and I would talk about whatever. We could talk about honky tonks or cards or gambling or stocks or whatever. He had a lot of interests. That's why people like that retire. The ones who don't have that and just have this burning desire to win tend to stay at it till they can't anymore. And maybe that will be it. Do I think there'll be any more impact players transfer out between now and fall camp? Well, they can't. They can't go. No one can go in the portal now till May. So fall camp will be over before that happens. Is Wake a fun road trip? Didn't they do a stadium renovation? Have we been there since they did it? Last time Georgia Tech was at Wake Forest was it 2010? Is that right? Jeez. That's why the old setup of the league sucked so bad, right? I still have not been to Syracuse for a game. They've been in the league for a while. Look this up because it's going to bug me. Georgia Tech. I have been to Wake since then, but for a game. But let's see. Georgia Tech owns a 3-game win streak against Wake Forest, dating back to 2009. So, yeah, they haven't played there since 2010. That was the Corey Earls game, maybe. Yeah, I like that part of North Carolina. We were originally from Durham before I moved to Athens, so I have a soft spot for that whole part of North Carolina. Who leads the team in tackles this year? Miles Brooks. I don't know who the starting linebackers are right now, so that would be the safest guess. Would you say this is a bit more favorable in recent than in years past? How many years? All right, so let me take this one by one here. Is the schedule a bit more favorable than recent years? Yes. I think it sets up better. You've dumped some of they're not playing Central Florida this year, which was a killer game for them. 2 of Jeff's 3 years, 3.5 years. How many consistent years in a row will it take to stabilize the crowd back to 45,000 fans? Um, I don't know. I think winning will do that, but I think it's going to take like 2 years of winning pretty consistently to get the fans back engaged and showing up. Russell's asking what percentage of the crowd in GT will be in Oxford will be GT fans. I'm going to guess that whatever the allotment is for GT will be sold because I know a lot of people that are coming. The new recruits announced today were all preferred walk-ons. One of them was going to Army. The running back kid whose name I'm blanking out on now. I'm going to look it up because I don't want to do that. Chad Alexander, he was committed to Army, backed out of that, and then is taking a PWO. Bailey Stockton's a very decent walk-on wide receiver. It's a potential Dylan Leonard kind of deal where maybe he can earn a scholarship down the road. Please don't say anything regarding 3 wins. Fair enough. Yeah, it was Corey Earle's game. I remember Paul Johnson lamented after the loss to Air Force in the bowl game in Shreveport that if Corey had dropped that pass like he had dropped a bunch of other ones, they wouldn't have made it to that bowl game. How do most fans feel about Andy Demetra? Any noise about getting a new play-by-play guy? You got I like Andy fine. I like Wiley's a friend, so I wouldn't mind seeing him if he were the next guy up if Andy were to leave. But I don't think that's high up on J-Bat's agenda is tackling people liking or not liking the play-by-play guy. I think Andy's a professional guy, does a good job. Is he Wes Durham? No. But you got very lucky with Wes and Brandon. That's very unusual. I think the caliber of play-by-play guys has dropped off across all of college sports from what I've seen as a lot of these guys start to retire and guys move along. It's not as big a deal as it used to be. Very random question. What happened to old Bobby Dodd, PA announcer? He did a few games in 2013, and then they switched. I think that was because someone was unavailable, but that's beyond sort of my memory of stuff. I think that was a guy doing something. I have not seen, to my knowledge, Ben Guthrie throw. I don't know if Russell has. I don't know if he was in camp this summer and I saw him. It's not ringing a bell right now. Let's see anything else. All right, we'll do a last call here. Anybody got anything else? And want to thank everyone for another wonderful year on Jackets Online. We're wrapping up the first month of 2023. Tell your friends if you're not a subscriber to Jackets Online, you should subscribe, support independent journalism, support Russell and I and what we do at Jackets Online. Tell your friends who are Georgia Tech fans. It really does make a difference. If everyone got one friend to sign up tomorrow to Jackets Online, we'd be able to add another full-time staff member. That's how big of a difference that can make in our business. And that's what we like to do. We like to keep amping this up. Do we have any concept of what the new offensive scheme will be? It will be an NCAA offense, a spread of some type. That's about as much as I know. Will we have a JOL party in Oxford? If again, this is one of those things. If you guys want to organize something, I'm happy to show up and talk. If you want to set up a tailgate for anything, whether it's at Bobby Dodd or on the road somewhere, I am happy to come hang out, promote it on the board if you want. I just do not have the bandwidth to do something like that. You saw that little guy that came in here. I'm trying to spend as much time as I can with my family when I can. And obviously we travel a lot and run around and running multiple businesses while covering Georgia Tech. And Russell's got a lot of things going on in his life too. So The easier you make something like that, the more likely it is to happen. But we will probably bring back the JOL luncheon thing. That's on my agenda to bring back and maybe have a cool surprise guest for that. Anything else, guys and gals? Let's see if there's anything else on the board. I did enjoy when, by the way, when Mark Richt called Roddy Jones a little fart. That was literally the high point of that elongated NCAA tournament selection show quasi football release thing they did. Thank God they got it done in the first hour. I would have freaked out if that happened. Chase Lane's video. So Chase is an interesting guy. He sort of played out of position a little bit at A&M, from what I understand. Most people think he's more of a slot receiver. They really like him. I think that it's going to be interesting to see what it looks like for his fit in this offense and stuff. It's not. You're not. I think if you are expecting Nate McCollum, I don't think you can set that on that kid. I think you have to be more open to what he is. I don't know exactly how he fits, and everything's different. That A&M offense was so dysfunctional. I don't know that I would put a lot on him. What's my favorite all-time moment covering Georgia Tech football? Same for basketball. The football one is probably the most exciting game was the Bucker game, with the DJ White pick in Athens. That was the most exciting game I covered. That and the blocked field goal game in 2015 against Florida State. Those two stand out in my mind. The Orange Bowl was the win, and then the Orange Bowl was also really good, as was the 2009 ACC championship game. Those are sort of the ones that pop in my head for football. Basketball. Basketball's harder because it's been so bad. I missed I wasn't in Greensboro for the tournament when they won that. Maybe beating Kentucky, because it just seemed like something I wouldn't ever see with men's basketball. That one stands out to me when they beat them I think it was in Phillips or State Farm or whatever. I don't know if it changed yet. Oh, you want me to do a day in the life video? I thought about doing a whole travel vlog thing of what it's like flying in some place, going into what our day to day is like in the thing. We need to kind of invest in some equipment. My best friend's a video editor, so I think he could help me with that. That's what I actually went to school to do. I just don't have time to do it, but he's actually a pretty sharp editor. He could probably put it together. I should talk to him. I'll see him this weekend. He's coming down from Nashville. That's why I'm actually not going to the NC State game on Saturday. Russell will cover it virtually. My best friend from high school will be in town, and we're going to hang out, and he's going to teach my oldest kid, who's super into juggling, how to juggle more. So that's what we're spending our weekend doing, and it's his birthday. My old friend from high school. Well, I was thinking not just like a tripod, like a video, but I watch all these YouTubers that have the little head cameras and show them driving and all. I feel like there's a lot of interesting stuff to take you through. For example, on Wednesday, I'm going up to Louisville. So Louisville's really fascinating. They play in basically an NBA arena, but there's no NBA team. They have a really nice spread for the media. And then you walk out and you sit literally the band's right here. And where I sat last time, I was in front of a bass amplifier for 2 hours for the basketball game. And luckily I had earplugs in my bag, and as a former bass player, I was sort of like, what in the world is this? That's where they sit the media. You sit under the front of the court, and it's all different. Like BC's a super weird one. I'll be up there because I'm going to go see family, and that's a super weird one. So my first year covering Georgia Tech was 2009. Yeah, I'm going to be a full blown. Hey man, if I can make some of that influencer cash, like on top of what I do now, I'd be pretty content with that. Be the one of my favorite YouTubers. I'll be the Steve Wallace of journalists. Steve Wallace is this dude that does like camping videos, and I enjoy them. He's a Canadian dude, and they're like super relaxing to watch. And he like cooks food and like stealth camps, or like camps in a bus, or like it makes like a makeshift boat and goes down a river in Canada. And I find that oddly enjoyable. So I watch a couple of those guys because my wife will not let us go camping. She's not into that. What are the odds they go back to the real grass instead of turf? Seems like it's a money thing. They're going to change the turf, supposedly. That's the rumor on the street. I don't think they're going back to grass, though. All right, folks. Well, I'm going to wrap it up. It's been 42 minutes. If my toddler's still awake, pray for me, and I will see you guys. Maybe we'll come on Thursday. I'm not sure yet. Well, actually, probably not Thursday because I'm going to be back late from Louisville anyways. So I'm not sure when we'll go live again, but I'll keep you guys posted on Jackets Online. Once again, thanks everybody for joining me, and click that like button and have a good week.